I look around the room and I was just anticipating this being a very small group. Because in my mind, person-centered planning has been discussed since the 1980s, when some of you probably weren't even born yet. And it's been law since the 1990s in Michigan. So I thought everybody's heard all about person-centered planning. So when they called me and said, we want you to do PCP 101, I thought, who's going to come to that? And this is a larger group than I had yesterday when I was talking about employment. So I'm kind of intrigued, and I want to find out who you all are. So I'm going to pass the mic to the first person in the row. Everyone's like, oh no, not me, I'm not going to go on mic. I just want you to tell me maybe your name. I'm Mary, I work for blah, blah, blah. Or if you're a person here to find out about your own person-centered planning, I'm here to find out about person-centered planning. So just a little bit of background. We're going to pass the mic as quickly as possible. And you sat in the front row, Michael, so you get to go first.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael. I work for the state of Michigan, MDHHS, and I'm here because, the person-centered plan is kind of like the nucleus of everything else that we work with, so I wanted to learn more about it.
Good morning. I'm Michael Banks, and I also work with MDHHS. I'm actually on the same team as Michael here. And also I'm new to the department and just wanted to learn more about person-centered planning.
So there's no pressure here. I just have to describe the nucleus of all your work, right? Okay, no pressure.
Hi, my name is Crystal Moore, and I am a case manager from Genesee Health System, here to learn more about person-centered planning.
Awesome, thank you.
Amanda, I'm a supports coordinator aide for Ottawa County Community Mental Health.
I'm Jennifer. I'm a supports coordinator from Ottawa County Community Mental Health also.
I'm Peyton, and I'm a sports coordinator aide from Ottawa County CMH.
I'm Lisa Wilson. I'm an independent support coordinator mentor, and I'm from Community Living Services in Wayne County. Okay. And I'm here because I'm trying to practice learning how to write person-centered plans for the person I support while getting the services they need authorized.
Okay.
Two things that get meshed, right?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I do have a piece of the presentation on goal writing. So,
I'm Tammy. I'm from the Kalamazoo area, and I am here because I have a son who has severe autism, and he's blind, and he's got a lot of issues, and he's turning 18 in October.
okay. I too am a family member in addition to my 40-some years. Did I just say 40-some years? Over 40 years in the field. But my information comes not just from my background and my degrees, but really being the bratty little sister for my brother, who happens to be diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and my aunt with Down syndrome, who have received services. So I come to it from this family perspective as well.
I'm Amanda. I'm from Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health, and I'm a new self-determination coordinator.
Hi, I'm Amina. I'm a navigator at the Autism Alliance of Michigan.
Great, thank you.
My name is Keela, and I am a director of a nonprofit organization that works with AFC and CLS services, and I am also a mother that has self-determination for an adult child.
Awesome.
I am Mazan Green, and I am case management for Genesee Health System. I'm here to try to understand, well, I tried to understand self-determination. That's out the window. But I'm here to understand all of the changes the state is making with the how to write the plans.
Okay, no pressure there. It just took a team of like 26 professionals over the course of a year and a half to figure out the worksheet I'm going to show you later about writing goals. So yeah, I all of what we learned in the last 2.5 years, we're going to condense into an hour and a half, okay? So we'll give you the cheat sheet on it. Okay.
I'm Tiffany, and I'm a case manager for Genesee Health Systems. I'm here to learn more about person-centered planning.
Hi, my name is Alicia Goodman, and I work for MDHHS. I'm a prevention coordinator, public health coordinator for the MODA program, Michigan Overdose Data to Action. I'm here to learn more about person-centered planning.
Awesome.
Hello, I'm Mari Hesselink. I'm from Lakeshore Regional Entity. I'm the Customer Services Specialist there, and I'm here to learn more about what a properly written person-centered plan looks like.
Awesome.
Good morning, my name is Molly Jacqueline. I am the support group coordinator for foster adoptive families in Clinton County. I'm here because a lot of our kiddos have disabilities, and I just want to learn more to bring back to the parents so that they can advocate for their children as they get older.
Great. Thank you. Got it?
I'm Michelle Anguiano. I'm from the Lakeshore Regional Entity. I'm the Customer Services Manager. I'm really interested to hear more about billing and how to bill things under the person-centered plan. We do a lot of the appeals for denials, and so just getting more input on that would be really helpful.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have much on that in my presentation, but I can connect you with people who have more information about that.
My name is James Sobernagel. I'm a case manager at Pines Behavioral Health, and I'm just here to learn more about person-centered planning.
Hi, my name is Trent Lee. I am also from Pines Behavioral Health, and I'm also a case manager here to learn about person-centered planning.
Awesome.
My name is Tammy Spalding, and I'm a case manager at Pines Behavioral Health in Branch County.
Hi, I'm Leslie Swan. I'm also from Pines Behavioral Health in Branch County, and just here to hear more about person-centered planning.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Katie. I work at a maximum security prison, and don't know if this is going to be relevant, but it's hard to find resources for a lot of guys when they're maxing out. They go from being in segregation for 16 years to just being dropped off at a bus station. So we like to try to get them somewhere to go, so I'm hoping to learn some more stuff.
Okay, so some of what I have to say might be helpful. Some of the laws and rules don't apply in the same way, but good planning, futures planning for people is good futures planning for people, all people. So we will talk about some things that I think might be helpful to you.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I also work for Maximum Security, Michigan Department of Corrections. And like she said, we do have a lot of guys that discharge into the community with no resources at all. So we would like to see the department do better.
Okay, so we can talk about resources for sure. Okay, this just became a competition for the left and the right side of the room. We're going to see if he can get through the microphone quicker than that side. Okay?
Good morning, I'm Jamie Stewart. I am a clinical service planner with West Michigan CMH.
Thank you.
I am Starn Clark from West Michigan CMH, and I also am a clinical service planner.
Hi, I'm Jen Scholes. I'm an advisor for the School of Social Work at Michigan State, and I have a 13-year-old daughter with Down syndrome, so wanting to learn for her future.
My name is Nikki Moody. I'm the field coordinator for the School of Social Work at Michigan State University.
Awesome.
My name is Kim Franklin, support coordinator for Wayne Center, and no matter how many times they do the PCP one-on-one, I make sure I attend the class due to a variety of different changes.
Yeah, it only took me 40 years to get to this place where people think I should be presenting on it, so, you know.
Hi, my name is Sharice Ward, and I too work for Wayne Center, support coordinator. And yes, due to the changes of the PCP, how to write it, so that's why I'm here.
All right.
Sarah Reynolds, Lapeer County Community Mental Health. I'm a case manager supervisor.
Welcome.
Good morning, Brooke Sankwitz. I'm from Lapeer County Community Mental Health, as well as the clinical director.
Cool.
Otis Williams, support coordinator, Genesee Health System.
Delondria Sacacia, a CBS waiver coordinator from Mid-State Health Network.
I'm Tori Ellsworth. I'm the HSW coordinator at Mid-State Health Network.
I'm Kara Hart. I am an HCBS administrator at Mid-State Health Network, which is the PIHP.
Okay.
Melissa Fenning from Health West in Muskegon, and I'm here I think it's important to get refreshed on person-centered planning because we do them all the time, but you kind of get into a rut, and I think it's good to refresh. So.
Yeah.
Delisa Johnson, I work for Wayne Center as a support coordinator.
Thank you.
Courtney Fricker, I'm with Child and Family Charities. I'm the community benefits specialist, and I also do the billing side of things by night, so I'd like that resource too.
Greg Guillermo, addiction therapist supervisor for the VA healthcare system in Bonham, Texas.
Did I just hear you say you're from Texas? Yep. Okay.
Good morning, I'm Shirley Tarvis from Washtenaw County Community Mental Health. I provide wraparound services and case management services, and I'm here just for a refresher, any new ideas.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Nicole Womack from Washtenaw County. I'm a home-based therapist.
Okay.
Christina from Sanilac County Community Mental Health. I work in adult outpatient services and I run their SUD and IDDT programs.
Mario Wilcox, I am a mental health consultant for Michigan Public Health Institute.
Kimberly Whitaker, I'm from Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health, SPIHP for Region 4. I work with children and adults in different agencies. So person-centered planning is definitely something the kiddos especially that I work with doing.
So when we're working with youth under the age of 18, we talk about person-centered and family-centered planning. So,
hi, Charlotte from Saginaw Community Mental Health. Oversee our support coordination, day program. I think, yeah, and then I chair the BTC, our Behavioral Treatment Committee.
Awesome.
I'm Teresa. I currently am at Shiawassee Health and Wellness, and I have a full hat as well. I do our day program, I do our PERS system, and the case coordinators. I started 30 years ago as a case coordinator. We had an explosion of provider issues during COVID, so in our county we went from 10 self-directed cases to about 60, and then it impacted myself because I have a differently abled daughter, and our provider pulled out during COVID as well, so we now do self-direction in our home.
Okay.
I'm Kathleen Smith, and I'm with Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, and I do utilization management.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tina Keeley, and I work at Integrated Services of Kalamazoo in the Self-D program.
And I'm Angie Vanover. I also work for Integrated Services of Kalamazoo. I'm the self-determination supervisor, and I am here for a training requirement.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to cross. So that helps me know how to gear what I'm about to do. And so everything I put in my presentation, I just changed on the fly here. The one area that I'm just going to be honest that I did not cover in this presentation is the billing. We can talk about that, and I can talk about where you can get some resources. But our friends from Utilization Management in the front row may have more answers than I do about some of the billing stuff. And she's giving me the evil eye right now. But we will talk about that, but just minimally. So I just want to put that up front so you have an option if you want to go to one of the other sessions, because there's not going to be a lot in the PowerPoint about the billing process. So I know a couple people walked in at the last moment. The lovely green jacket.
I'm Shirley Wilson, Supervisor of Adult Case Management Services at LifeVoice.
Okay. And there was someone else that walked in, they're hiding. Real loud. Pretend you have a mic. Awesome. Okay, did I get everyone? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my PowerPoint back up here. Some of you mentioned you're here. So the sign-in code is 58. Everyone get that? 5858. Okay, so you're here for Person-Centered Planning 101. I haven't introduced myself necessarily. You learned a little bit about me when you were introducing yourselves. My name is Mary Sheehan, and I work for the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. I've worked in the rehabilitation field, as I say, for over 40 years. I've born, bred, and corn-fed in the great state of Michigan. So I've lived here my whole life. I'm also the family member of multiple people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I grew up with an aunt with Down syndrome she was born in the 1940s. I grew up in the 1960s here in Michigan. So my understanding of person-centered planning started before person-centered planning was even really talked about. We just didn't call it that. So from my perspective, just trying to get my aunt and my brother who has autism and my other brother who has a closed head injury, the services and supports they need, and trying to understand how the system works. And then when I got a little older, I decided, gosh, if I want to see a change in the world, I need to be part of that change. So I went to college to get the degrees I needed to get a psychology license so that I could be one of those people helping to change the system. And now I work for the state of Michigan. So from that perspective, this presentation was created. I've also worked as support coordinator. I hate to use the word case manager because people aren't cases, they're people. So I tend to use support coordination or coordinator. So if you hear me say that, that's what I'm talking about. So I've had multiple jobs at CMHs around the state over my long time in the field. So I was one of those people trying to figure out how do I be person-centered with 40 people that I'm assigned to work with and make it all work and get them all the lives they want. It's a difficult task, but there are some things that we can talk about today to try and make that a little easier. And it starts with really understanding what the requirements are and what person-centered planning, not just is philosophically about, but also procedurally about. So we'll talk about that. Okay. So if you're not in the right room, you have about 30 seconds to go to another session. Okay. So I'm going to move on here. It's going to take me a minute because I've got two things to move. So what is person-centered planning? I will start by saying it's not the form. Everybody say that out loud. It's not the form. Person-centered planning is the process. So it's the process that assists people with disabilities and their families to plan for their future. It's just a set of structured exercises in planning. It focuses on strengths and choices. It's a snapshot of the focused person's possibilities for their future. And when I use this phrase, focused person, it's the person with IDD or the person that's been diagnosed with a mental illness or the person about to leave prison. It's whoever the plan is about. So I'll use that phrase throughout the presentation. So the focused person is who the plan's about. It outlines the services delivered by behavioral health or CMHs or other organizations and how they're supposed to be person-centered. It is for anybody who's receiving behavioral health services in the state of Michigan. So if you're receiving supports from a CMH, the CMH is required to deliver those supports based on person-centered practices. That's part of the mental health code. The mental health code in Michigan is what covers or what outlines how services and supports are supposed to be delivered in the state of Michigan through our behavioral health organizations. So, there is no one way to do person-centered planning. And every time you think you've learned all the ways to do person-centered planning, as some people brought up in their introduction, they create new ways, or new techniques, or new tools to use. And none of them are right or wrong. But I will tell you, all of them should have these key points. Person-centered, really focused on that person that the plan's about. It's not focused on what agency they're getting services from, or what mom or dad want necessarily, or particularly for adults who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and older. It's not even, my brother will tell you, about what my bratty little sister wants. So it needs to be centered on what that individual has as a trajectory for their life, their hopes and dreams for their future. It's capacity building. As my old farm boy dad used to say, you either learn or you're dead. What option do you want? So people learn and grow throughout their entire life. And the idea is we should always be focused on capacity building. Everyone has something to learn. Everyone has new experiences that they haven't encountered before. And so part of our job in person-centeredness is creating opportunities for people to learn and build their capacity in lots of different ways, whether that's in their understanding of getting into the community around them or understanding how their finances work and taking in more and more control of their own life as they're able. Again, person-centered, that was actually an error, but now that I think about it, that's the main focus, so why not put it on there twice? Needs to be person-centered. Network building, always helping the individual to build their social capital, and that social capital could be introducing them to other colleagues in the organization where you work who could provide supports. It could mean opening up opportunities for them to be more involved in their community. So again, helping them to become a regular at the local coffee shop. You never know when you're thinking about community inclusion, who in a person's community can then become a person of support. In one situation that I worked with in Washtenaw County, somebody else was here from Washtenaw County, it became a taxi driver, became a central part of somebody's circle of support. And what was happening is this individual worked full-time at U of M Public Safety, writing in tickets. She reminded me of that once when she saw my name come across her desk. I do admit to a parking ticket on U of M campus at one point. So how she came to have a taxi driver is that the paratransit turned to yellow cab for a period of time in Washtenaw County. And so we had all these cab drivers who suddenly were paratransit drivers for people with disabilities. And the first day she got in his cab for him to drive her to work, she noticed a big coffee cup filled with coffee. And she is very much a coffee drinker. So every day after that, she brought a coffee for herself and a little to-go cup of coffee because she thought his mug would the coffee would get cold in it. So she bought another mug with a lid to keep it warm and said, "This one's for you." And literally, this man changed his shift so he could drive her to and from work every day. They got to be very close. And one day when she was gone for a period of time, he tracked my number down. How he knew, she had mentioned at one point being the Young Adult Project and the organization that funded it. And so I get this call, and he's like, "I'm Guido from Yellow Cab." And I was like, "You're who, from where?" And he's like, "I need to ask you about," we'll call her Erin at the moment. "I need to ask you about Erin. I'm very concerned." And I'm still thinking, "You're who, from where?" And he said, "She hasn't gotten in the cab the last week. Is she sick? Is she ill? Could my wife and I go visit her at the hospital if she's in the hospital?" And I'm still processing, "You're who, from where?" And so I said, and then I, got into my HIPAA mode, and I said, "I can neither confirm or deny that I know Erin. But I will call you back in 2 hours." And that's kind of what I said. And I hang up the phone, and I'm thinking, "That was who, from where?" Erin was in Hawaii because she was part of one of her siblings' weddings. And so I have her cell phone. I call her, and she was with her mom, and I was like, "You're not going to believe who just called me. It's Guido from Yellow Cab." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, he's my friend." And I was like, how do I not know this? And so she said, "Yeah, you can give him any information you want." And so I call him back, and I said, "I just wanted you not to worry. Erin's in Hawaii right now." And he's like, oh, I was so worried. We thought she might be in the hospital. I said, she's going to be gone for another bit, but she'll be back. And I'm sure, he's like, I changed my shift so that's when he told me, I changed my shift just so I could drive her. He said he's the only person that's ever gotten in my cab and really had a nice, pleasant conversation and asked about me. Creating social capital. Doesn't matter what you score on an IQ test, you have the ability to interact with other people, and knowing how to help people build that social capital can be a huge part of network building for individuals. He started attending her person-centered planning meetings. His wife, who was a great Italian cook, taught Erin how to cook. Erin knowing how to cook pasta from scratch became a key factor in her housing, because she ended up living on one of the U of M campus in a co-op, and the other students were like, cooking, Erin's up. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they knew they were going to have freshly made pasta. And so think about that. You never know how that networking is going to begin or how it's going to end. When we're doing plans, a few people asked about goal writing, so we are going to talk about that. It needs to be outcome-based. We don't just write a goal and then next year say, continue, 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 continue. I can tell you there are some plans where, for my brother that I see written, where it's just continuing everything from last year. It really needs to be outcome-based. So it needs to be focused on what the change in the person's life's going to be in that year. And then community accessibility or community inclusion needs to be key. We all have heard about the HCBS and doing things in the community. How do we expect people, and how do we help people to build social capital if they're never in social situations? They need to be connected inclusively in their community to be able to do that. So the goal of person-centered planning, we've talked about what it is and some of the key features. The goal of person-centered planning process is to create a plan that addresses the individual. It's really not rocket science. There's lots of rules, there's regulations, there's Medicaid guidelines about it, there's the mental health code, which is a bazillion pages long. But it's about a process that creates a plan that addresses the individual, person-centered. The desired outcome is more than a traditional individual support plan. When I think back to the 1980s when, I was in the field and we did IPOSs, person-centered planning wasn't even talked about. It was an individualized plan of service. And there were like these canned diagrams on how to write the plan, and everybody had to have at least 3 services available, like speech and language, PT, OT. Well, what if they didn't need a speech and language therapist? What if they didn't need a psychologist? Heaven forbid. What if they didn't need a social worker? What if they didn't need that? You had to have 3 disciplines. Otherwise, they didn't qualify for services. Doesn't make any sense. So really what we need to talk about is, again, be person-centered. Provide the supports that the individual needs and not supports that they don't. It should empower the focused person to communicate what they want. So again, talking to the individual, there's a novel concept. Not talking just to the family or to the guardian or to the other circle of supporters who might be from agencies. It's really focused on communicating what that individual wants in their lives. And there's times I hate this rule when I'm sitting at my brother's PCP and I'm like, oh no, what you need is this. And he's like, and literally he says it like it is, girl, you are the baby sister, don't forget that. I'm your elder. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So, when I'm in different roles, I sort of sometimes don't like that rule because I'm like, oh, I know what's best for my brother. Empower the focused person to make their own decisions. I do the classic head turn, because people will say well, what does Kevin want? I can't go into McDonald's with him without people saying, what does he want? I don't know. I look up at him because he's 6'4". I don't know. What do you want? I think they're talking to you. And, my advocacy used to be much more pointed. I'd be like, what the hell are you asking me for? Ask him, you know? And so again, it's really encouraging that individual to have a voice and to talk about the things that they really want. It should empower the focused person to set priorities and goals. Goals that make sense to them. So when we have a nutritionist say, your goal should be to be within your ideal weight range by December 1st of 2023, I just want to go, like, how many of us work well with a goal like that? Anybody here ever tried a weight loss plan? Okay, keep your hands up. How many people have tried a weight loss plan? Okay, I know. Now keep your hands up. How many of you were successful? Put your hand down. Okay, some people were successful at that. But again, if our plan was created in a way that made sense to us, we're more likely to sustain that plan. We're more likely to accomplish that plan than if it's created by a nutritionist and now your meals are this and you can only, have this many calories per day and your meals are going to be monitored and all of that. And I don't know how many PCPs, person-centered plans, where I sat at meetings and the focus person was the thinnest person in the room. And they end up on a diet somehow, and I'm like, I don't get this. I will tell you from my brother, nutritionists were always on him. We're not a small family in terms of our girth. And yeah, I had to find a good word to say that, girth. In terms of our girth. But I will tell you the most successful he's been was when he could exercise in the way that made sense to him. And it really helped when there was a shutdown and people weren't supposed to leave their homes for a period of time in Michigan. He immediately wanted to get out. And he's somebody who doesn't like to be in the community a lot, doesn't like to meet a lot of new people. Stimulation from the community can be kind of overwhelming for him. But he wanted to get out of the house. So I said, okay, every day I'll walk with you 2 miles. And we go on a boardwalk where nobody else was out and about. We wore a mask. At the end of that year, he'd lost more weight than he'd ever had in his entire life because he could do it his way and it was meaningful to him. But reading on his person-centered plan or an assessment by a nutritionist that you need to lose weight and here's my plan for you to lose weight never made sense to him. So again, it really needs to be person-focused. So we've all heard about home and community-based waivers and services and PCPs. So many states require agencies providing services to individuals with disabilities to use a person-centered approach. This means that every staff member working with a person being supported by the agency must use person-centered approaches. This provision aims to ensure that services are focused on helping the individual have more control over their lives. That's everybody from the CEO to the janitor. It doesn't matter what position you hold, you're required by the Mental Health Code to provide services in a person-centered way. So in 2014, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services established detailed person-centered planning requirements for all organizations considering home and community-based services. How many people in the room work for organizations that are governed by the Mental Health Code and Medicaid in the room? Pretty much almost everyone. So all of this applies to you. So what does the law say about person-centered planning? It means that it's a process. It's not about the form. It's the process for planning and supporting the individual receiving the services that builds on the individual's capacity to engage in activities that promote community life and that honors the individual's preferences, choices, and abilities. The person-centered process involves families, friends, and professionals as the individual desires or is required. And again, I don't make this stuff up, it comes from Michigan compiled law. And this was pulled right from June of 2000, Michigan's long-term care group report and recommendation. So in a nutshell, those are the things that person-centered planning should be. It's not about the form, it's about that whole process. 2 areas to think about when planning. The importance of focusing on the person. And it needs to start early enough to listen to the news and have a cup of coffee. So think about it. You need to think about what's important to the focused person and what's important for the focused person. So what's important to and what's important for. And so if you think about this, you're going to see lingo or goals written in a much different way. So a goal or a service might be created on a plan because the person's goal is to get up early enough to listen to the news and have a cup of coffee. What's important for the person, so it's kind of a difference between writing in that old IPOS way and writing in a new person-centered way. In the old way, you might say, to take blood pressure medication first thing in the morning as prescribed by the primary care physician. First of all, many people with IDD wouldn't even know what some of those terms meant. It's not written in plain language. And it's not focused on what's in it for the person. So the medical staff may want them to have their blood pressure taken. But if you focus in your conversations with the person on what's in it for them, they like to be up early enough to be able to watch their news and have coffee, and then that's tied into getting blood pressure taken. That can make a huge difference. The person might be thinking to have enough time in the morning prior to leaving for work to get my children ready for school without rushing. Who wants to be rushed? Hi, honey, wake up. Good, good. Have a great day. Gotta go. Bye. You know, you want to be able to take time and really connect with the individual. The old way would be to be at work on time each day according to the company policy, and it probably would be 100 words longer than that. To feel valued for the work I do each day. How many of us can agree with that? Would we all like to feel valued about the work we do each day? Where in the old way, we might write something like, to perform job duties according to the employer's standards. Page 1, paragraph 3 of the such an Acme, employment policy manual. It doesn't have anything in it for the person. To be able to shop at more than one rack for my favorite clothing. This was all that was important to an individual that I worked with. He would go into the one store that he could afford to buy new clothes, and he was very much a clothes horse. And he was a size 4X. There was one rack. So the idea of losing weight didn't have anything to do with health for him. It had to do with buying clothes that fit. And when there was only one rack of 4X clothes at his favorite store, he decided, wow, I might need to lose weight, so I can shop at 3 racks of size 3X or 2X or 1X. But of course, a nutritionist would write, to stay within the ideal weight range according to my nutritional assessment. How many of you would get healthier with a goal that says to be part of my ideal weight range according to a nutritional assessment? And how many people with intellectual and developmental disabilities understand all of those terms? So again, it's talking about, it's communicating about, it's creating a process to address it in the way that makes sense to the individual. I have a question. Go ahead. These are neither goals or objective, it's just basic wording. So, okay. We are going to talk specifically about goal writing at the end. So I'll get more specific about it. These are just general ideas, all right? So best practice guidelines. If you're going to be in this field, think about providing the services and supports you provide using best practices. There are best practice guidelines. We uploaded them to the conference website. So if you look at this presentation, you can also see several handouts. One of them is on goal writing, and one of them is the best practices, the full guidelines. Make sure you've read those. It's important. Again, important points, focus on the person. They can call a new meeting whenever they want. I don't know how many times I've heard people be told, well, we'll address that next year at your next meeting. Well, if your next meeting's on December 23rd and it's January 1st, you got a long time to wait. Sometimes a person receives their person-centered plan and there's things in it they're not comfortable with. What got written up just doesn't really match what they thought was talked about at the meeting. They don't have to wait. They can call a new plan whenever they want. Whenever there's a major life change, a move to a different home, a new service or support that they're getting, it's a good time to try and get the group back together. You don't have to get the group together in a meeting. You can do it in a phone call. You can do it in a video meeting. You don't maybe have to reconvene the whole PCP and the circle of support, but you should take a look at the plan and modify it based on new things that are happening in the individual's life. The focus person's team helps to strengthen their social capital by building those natural supports. These are all, again, briefly described features of best practices. The focus person and their team work together to build those natural supports. You have the option of choosing an independent facilitator. How many people in the room have heard about independent facilitators before today? I'm thankful to see so many hands go up. I'm ashamed that in my state, not every hand goes up, because an independent facilitator is something that each person has a right to ask for. So everyone working in the field should know about that. Go ahead. We're going to talk about that in a few slides, so I'll answer that question. Because MIDDI, or Michigan Developmental Disabilities Institute, it's our UCED, or University Center of Excellence on Developmental Disability in Michigan, is the Developmental Disabilities Institute at Wayne State University. And they have a website, and I'm going to show you the links in a little bit, where you can identify who the independent facilitators who are trained are and where they work, so available in what regions. There's not nearly as many as we'd like to have. We'd like to get more people trained as independent facilitators. But that word independent means that they cannot work or receive finances directly from a community mental health. So I work under the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Though I have 40 years of training, and prior to my work at DD Council, I was an independent facilitator, there's that conflict of interest. So that's why you can't work directly for a CMH and be an independent facilitator. That's why peer mentors, people supported by agencies who are mentoring other individuals from the same agency, cannot be peer mentors for anybody from the agency that's paying them. So it's independent. So again, it assures that that person is being listened to, and there's no financial gain for the person to do A or B, to have a goal that suits the agency more than the individual. Sounds like you had another part to that question.
I think you answered it, because I do work for the PIHP, but there are peers who work there as well,
right.
And so they wouldn't be able to take that.
They can't be an independent facilitator for somebody supported by your agency. They could, however, be an independent facilitator for somebody you work where? Southwest Michigan, maybe West Michigan. And with this, I hate to think anything good came from a pandemic, but we've learned to do a lot more virtually. And so when you think of that transfer, how would they meet with the person? They could maybe meet virtually with the person. So we do have some peer mentors in the state who are independent facilitators who have been trained to facilitate person-centered planning meetings, but they cannot work for somebody, or they cannot provide that service for somebody from the agency who pays them. So they may choose to do that. We have some family members who, one person lives in one county, another person lives in another county, so they facilitate each other's plans. Did that answer your question? Okay. So every good plan starts with good planning, good pre-planning. I got to make sure my slide matches this. I so often find out that pre-planning isn't done. I've been to situations where somebody said, I got this mail, will you read it to me? And it was an invitation to their person-centered plan on Monday, right in the middle of their workday. This was Saturday, 2 days before the plan. And so my first comment after I'm reading it, just verbatim, because that's what I was asked to do, And I'm thinking, please say something, please say something, please say something. And they said, is that right? Can they do that? And I was like, well, you asked me 2 questions there. So clearly they can do it because they did. Is it right? I can only tell you what it says in the mental health code because I don't want to put, an idea into somebody's head. Here's what the mental health code says. And they're like, well, I think I should call my case manager. And that's the phrase they used. And I said, well, it's Saturday. How many of you think the case manager was available? So the case manager is expecting this person to show up for their person-centered planning meeting on Monday in the middle of their workday. So I said, well, let's leave a message. I could help you to leave a message on their desk phone. So I got the call at 7 a.m. that Monday morning. Were you talking to so-and-so? Do you know how long it takes me to plan a meeting? Yep. And you just think I can replan that? Yep. Long pause, dead silence. Why'd you do that? Because the law says, and I quoted them from the mental health code, which I had printed and had ready because I was expecting a call first thing on a Monday morning. And then we had a nice conversation about person-centered planning and best practices. So this stuff may seem to many of you like it's just, we all know this stuff, but those kind of situations still happen. So the person gets to decide what they want to talk about, what they don't want to talk about. I don't know how many person-centered planning for people who identify as female that I've been to where we want to talk about their menses. And, in the old way, when we had to have 3 disciplines, often nursing was one of those disciplines, and we'd talk about regular or irregular menses, and I'm like, y'all don't need to know that information about me for sure. Imagine how embarrassing that was for the individuals. So they get to decide what they're going to talk about, what they're not going to talk about. Many times, what they don't want to talk about is relationships because maybe their mom's going to be in the room for their PCP meeting, and they don't really want to talk to their mom about the fact that they want to look for contraception. So they get to decide what's talked about at the meeting and what's not. I'm not saying don't address those issues, just don't do it as part of the meeting. You have a pre-meeting with a nurse or somebody to provide them sexuality education or after the meeting, but you don't do it if their mom's in the room. They get to decide what to talk about, what not to talk about. They get to decide who to invite. At my brother's PCP, there are often 6 or 7 people in the room and a variety of laptops sitting around with people's faces on them. He'll invite my niece who works during the day and isn't able to attend, but she'll plan her lunch break around his PCP meeting, and she's there and she zooms in, and we'll often go around the room and then we'll say, okay, what do you think? And we're going around to all the laptops, getting everybody's opinion about things. So it should be who they want to be there, and it's our role working in behavioral health to make that possible. Sometimes it's their girlfriend or their neighbor or somebody from church or people that we don't think of as the traditional people that get invited. They should be able to decide where and when the meeting will be, not during the middle of their workday when it's too late for them to request off work. It needs to be planned at a time to maximize those people that they want to have there, that they can be there. Not everyone can attend my brother's PCP, but we do what we can to get everybody there. And I often do what I call the missing man situation. If we're around a table, we have an empty chair, and we have a piece of paper sitting there, and it's information that we've gleaned from somebody he wanted to have at the meeting but couldn't attend. Because if you're talking 15 or 20 people to mesh that many schedules, somebody's not going to be able to be there. But then either the independent facilitator or my brother or his supports coordinator get information from that person. What are they thinking? What have they experienced with my brother over the last year? And input into, here's the 5 things that your brother wants to talk about. So what are your thoughts about that? So they can be part of it. They get to decide who will facilitate or run the meeting. And I will just call y'all out. I've seen this happen. Been tempted, I think, once or twice to do it myself. You don't want an independent facilitator, do you? And then you check the box, yes, we discussed independent facilitators with them. You need to explain what independent facilitators are, what they do. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And it needs to be more than that precursory, yeah, you don't really want one of them, do you? Oh, no, guess not. Because people like my brother will agree with you, even if he doesn't agree with you. He'll say, oh, yep, no, don't want one because you're shaking your head no, so that, so we must think no. And then, when I'm talking to him, I thought you wanted an independent facilitator this year. Nope. Gloria says no. Oh, really? Is usually my comment, and he'll be like, you're going to go full out advocate on them, aren't you? And I'm like, oh, yeah. So this kind of stuff is really important so that you know that you should not just ask if they want an independent facilitator. You should make sure they understand what that means. And who will write things down? Always have a scribe, because there's lots of times what's said in a meeting ends up into this plan. And I will tell you, Jan Letman, who does a lot with person-centered planning around the state and a lot with independent facilitation, she we were out there just moments before I came in this room, and she was like, you got to see this. And it was somebody's person-centered plan, and it looked like the list on the right. This person will, do this according to, page 3, paragraph 2 of their, nutritional plan. And I was like, oh, well, that one went awry, didn't it? And the whole plan. And she's like, I was at that meeting. She facilitated a person-centered planning meeting, and everything that was said ended up different when it came into the actual document. So the two should match. So somebody should be taking notes. There should be a scribe, somebody prepared that you can go back and say, oh, we need to make sure this gets in the write-up. Oh, we need to make sure that gets in the write-up. The next thing here, values and principles underlying person-centered planning. And again, this is part of best practices, which you can read in the mental health code. This is just an abridged version. Person-centered planning, individualized about the focused person needs and wants. Their strengths are discussed. How much fun would it be for you to go into a room for an hour or more with people you may or may not know very much, and they talk about all your faults, what you're not able to do? Mine would read, Mary's unable to change a tire on her car. Mary's unable to do her taxes independently. Mary's over her ideal weight range. Mary this, Mary that, all the things. I grew up as the youngest of 5 siblings, so I was told I couldn't do a lot. I was too small, I was too young to do a lot of things. I've had enough of that. If I don't want to pay people to sit in a meeting for an hour and a half to tell them everything else that I'm too young, too old, too fat, too whatever to do. So it really should be focused on the person's strengths. It's self-directed. It makes sense to the person. I've been to PCPs in a pool because the person was very intimidated being at a PCP that was at the mental health, which was where the person who gave them a shot once a month was. So, sitting in a pool, and I asked when I was facilitating, where is this person most comfortable? And the family kind of was like trying to challenge me and said, in the pool. And I said, that's where the PCP can be. Would you like to have your PCP in your swimming pool? I got a resounding yes. So literally, everyone came into the pool one at a time. We had a big flip chart on the edge of the pool. Yes, it got a little wet and a few things smeared, but we fixed that. We could read it for the write-up, that's all that matters. So really thinking about what's going to make sense to the individual. The person's choices should be considered. Can they always be granted? I want to drive a Mercedes. I can't afford a Mercedes, so I drive a RAV4. Okay? It gets me around. Cars are not that important to me, but that could be very important to somebody else. Do I always get what I want? No. But people should consider that. Maybe it's about getting me to the auto show to see all the new cool cars. Maybe it's about other things. So bringing a person as close as they can to their desired goal is important. I've been to PCPs where the person said, I want to be president. When they were asked, if you could have any job in the world, what would it be? And they said, I want to be president. And everyone literally out loud laughed, except me. Because, I just like a challenge. So I said, what does being president mean to you? And the person thought for a while, and everyone was waiting with bated breath. What will this person say? And they said, being president means rich people suck up to you. And I thought, wow. A few other people in the room said, you know, that's a really good description. Where do you think that person works today? Anybody got a guess? Say it out louder. I heard something from that side. A bank? In Washington? Neither of you are correct, but close. This person runs the copy machine at the largest, most prestigious legal firm in Grand Rapids. And let me tell you, rich lawyers making more than 6 figures suck up to him every day, because if you want your brief copied, because you're due in court in 10 minutes, he just became the most important person in that law firm. He owns the best collection of silk ties, because it's like, what's it going to take? I like your tie. Here, it's yours. Now copy my brief. Because none of them know how to run the copy machine. And he has rich people sucking up to him every day that he's at work. And I will tell you, when he ran into some legal problems of his own, every lawyer in that firm volunteered to take his case pro bono. Because he was one of them. So he created social capital where he works. All people have gifts to offer their community. He had a gift to offer that law firm. And the person, the focus person, gets to choose their supports. If you just don't get along with your support coordinator or your case manager for whatever reason, of course, nobody ever did that when I was a support coordinator. Request a different one. My brother was the first one to say, I never want you to be my support coordinator. I'm like, that's fine, because I don't want to be yours either. And so it's important to understand, I mean, that would have been a conflict of interest anyways. It wasn't that he just thought I was a bratty little sister. But a person should really be able to choose. And if you recognize that the person who's supposed to be providing the services isn't on the same page with you, you should be able to request a new person. Somebody who's going to meld better with your ideal goals for your life. So values and principles underlying continued. The person-centered planning process should maximize independence. I don't like that word. This is the word they use in the best practices. I like the word interdependent. Because again, if we're helping people to build social capital, the idea is give and take. You want to be around people who give you something as well. And so being interdependent is what I like to say. Create community connections, work toward reaching the dreams and the goals, and understanding your cultural background. It should be recognized and valued. So you might be working with a Hispanic family, and sometimes in certain Hispanic cultures, living at home with the parents at 30 or 40 makes sense. And if you decide to marry, that spouse may live with you as well. And I remember being sent out to a home to work with an Hispanic family from Sao Paulo. And I noticed, I was working with Fabio, and all the things talked about, you know, independence, independence, independence. And, you know, he was 24, and why was he still living with his parents? And then I met his older brother, who was 29 and still living with his parents. It had nothing to do with intellectual or developmental disabilities. It was just part of the culture. So we had to look at person-centeredness and housing in a much different way. So the plan was that he would never move out. And that was a cultural thing. It could be as simple as family dynamics and lingo used within an individual family. My brother was once accused of acting in a sexual... I memorized it. Acting in a sexual way to female staff. I was like, wow. So I get this phone call. Okay, I've been a sexuality educator for over 40 years, so I'm like, wow, I never picked up on that from him. Never, any place he's ever lived, I've never seen that happen or hear of that happening. Tell me what happened. He keeps talking about wanting to see us in a bikini. Wow. because he hates swimsuits. Like, what? Where did that come from? And I'm like, wow. So I call him, and I'm like, dude, what's up? And he's like, I need some bread. It's fall. You should be harvest. Oh, you're talking about zucchini bread. Well, unless you know our family and our family dynamics, my son, growing up, Kevin's favorite person in the entire world, cannot say the word zucchini even now at 26 to save his life. So we always called it bikini bread. It's one of Kevin's favorite. So Kevin's sitting there and he's outside and he's watching the birds and he's thinking, wow, this would be about the time you harvest zucchini. I'd like to have some zucchini bread. I'll go in and ask my staff if they'll help me learn how to make zucchini bread. And he said, can we do bikinis? I really want to do bikinis. Can you show me bikinis? And they thought he was being unusually sexual with them. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. This is an easy fix, because they wanted me to write a behavior plan for my own brother. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Here's your plan. Go make some zucchini bread. Here's the recipe. I'll send it to you. So again, just family dynamics. All of that culture should be understood and represented within the person-centered planning process. And yes, we serve zucchini bread, bikini bread, at all of his meetings now. I gotta make sure this one catches up to that. So, additional things that they talk about. Ways to keep you healthy and safe are talked about. We don't focus only on that. So many plans are focused only on health and safety and leave out all the rest. That's just one life domain. So don't leave out the other life domains. Your team works with your doctor. So again, working with Kevin's doctor can make a big difference in him understanding how to communicate things to Kevin in a way that makes sense to Kevin, and Kevin to be able to identify and prep for every doctor's meeting that he has so he knows what he's going to say to the doctor. Because his language is very different. You know, you might get the zucchini bread or bikini bread conversation happening in a medical realm. Do you have pain in your stomach? Yes. Do you have pain in your foot? Yes. Do you have pain in your elbow? Yes. Kev, you told me you had green stuff coming out your nose and that's why you needed a doctor appointment. So do you really have pain in your elbow? No. Well, why did you just tell the doctor yes? He asked me if I had pain, and you agree with doctors and lawyers and policemen, right? That's how he was raised. So he will answer yes to whoever in the room said the last thing. And so he's agreeing to this, and you see the doctor's plan coming forward. So really getting to know and having time to speak with his doctor before he has to go to an appointment. So we put things down in writing. We might have a video chat before he goes in. We might do a phone call ahead of time. So we're identifying and we're with him, and somebody who knows how he communicates is there to explain to the doctor. So again, really thinking about all of those things is critical. It's important that you're given a chance to develop a crisis plan. Crisis can be anything from how do I handle my money, and what do I do if I'm walking to Burger King and somebody takes my money? It could be I'm moving into my own apartment and I often leave the stove on after I've cooked. How do we need to deal with that? So a crisis plan could be different for each person. And understanding if my primary people that support me now are not available, what's my backup plan? When and how far and how long each service will last is talked about. Because again, I've seen tons of plans over the years where it's just continue. So really have a set feature of when we're going to be done with a goal. And a plan to achieve what the goal was created for. Alternate services are always discussed. The person really needs to have an opportunity to talk about their needs and wants and choices in a language that makes sense to them. That may be having a sign language interpreter. It may be a pictorial plan. It may be just using that lingo that they're familiar with, plain language. All of that's critical because it's no different for them than a person who walks in and has English not as their primary language, and we're speaking in English and they're catching maybe every fifth word. So think about that in the context of if you just traveled to France and you don't speak French, and you're trying to pick up and glean information, you're trying to ask a question and get even where the bathroom is. If you don't know how to ask, that's the same position we put people in when we're not using plain language, when we're not using the language that they're familiar with. Or communicating in some other way, whether it's a communication board or whether it's having somebody kind of interpret for them. I often have to act as the interpreter for my brother, like explaining that when he's talking about bikinis, he's talking about zucchini bread. Best practices guidelines then get into this information. If you have a court-appointed guardian, you can still have a person-centered plan. Not only can you, but the law requires that you still have a person-centered plan. So one of the other initiatives I work on for the council is supported decision-making in this issue of guardian. We know that in Michigan, over 80% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have guardians. We're almost twice the national average. We're commissioning a report to figure that all out. A 10-year report to show where we're at in Michigan. Because right now, the data that we have is only NCI or National Court Indicator data. And that's only out of all the people in Michigan with developmental disabilities, about 25% receive services from organizations like where you all work through behavioral health. So where do the other 75 get services and supports? Their families, their non-service providers, people who are helping them get through life. And so we often think of if somebody has a guardian, we stop talking to them and we only talk to the guardian. It's important to understand that even if a person has a full plenary guardian, they're entitled to a person-centered plan that fits these best practice guidelines. They should still be able to make decisions that the judge, still be able to make any decisions that the judge did not write into the plan. Oftentimes we have people who are partial guardians. If you look at the guardianship paperwork, you definitely want to see that. Acting like full plenary guardians, where a guardian is given the authority to make decisions for a person just in one or two areas of their lives, but other decisions are up to that individual. But we just we maybe never read the plan and we don't know that, so we just are so used to guardians asking them the questions. It's important to know that information, what the guardianship papers say. Parents and family members of minors get to participate in the person-centered planning process unless there are a few guidelines, and they're on this next slide. So we call it person and family-centered practices. If you're 14 years of age, but not yet 18 and have requested services without the knowledge or consent of your parent or guardian. So there are means in Michigan for a person under the age of 18 to request services from a CMH without the knowledge of their parents, and that person's still entitled to a person-centered plan. The parent or family members are involved unless it would create a risk of physical or emotional harm to the person or substantial disruption of the planning process. I've been to a few cases, involved in a few cases in Michigan, a few situations. Did I just use the word cases? Y'all should come up and slap my hand for that one. I've been involved in a few situations where we had to uninvite a parent because it was clear that the person wasn't able to have their own voice. Unfortunately for me, that person was also on the board of the CMH that I worked for at that time, so that was lots of fun. Hi, Mom, you're not invited. I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave. I still maintain my job after that, but it's important to understand and acknowledge what the rules are so that you're prepared when those situations do arise. And they can from time to time. You have a chance to give feedback about the services and or treatment that you're getting. Information is collected and changes are made based on your feedback. And you get a copy of your individualized plan of service or PCP within 15 days after your meeting. And every support coordinator in the room just cringed. I don't even have to look. Because I know, you know, when you have 40 people that you're working with, staying to these timelines can be difficult. So there's lots of things that you can use. There's lots of tools. Independent facilitators can help take on some of that task for you, talking to your administration about how to do good person-centered planning, coming up with all the cheat sheets of how to do things as quickly as possible can be some of the things that you can use. I will tell you it is definitely possible. I will also tell you it is not easy. So types of planning tools. Your agency, I'll get to your question in just one second. Your agency may have a specific tool. Many agencies use like electronic records, and it kind of guides how you put that plan together. It still needs to be person-centered. Your role, your job is to make sure it's person-centered. There's lots of tools that you can use to do that. So we're going to go through the different tools that are the most common ones. And then I also shared, I think, a handout or two about some of these. I'm going to describe them briefly, and then at the bottom, there are those links that you can click on to learn more about that type of tool. So let me get to the question, and then I'll move on. The magic 15 days.
Okay, so we're given, well, we're asked to try to complete the plan at least 30 days before the plan is due. But you said 40. To me, 40 is manageable with my tracking system. But we're trying a new model that's going to take my caseload to 60 and 70 people. Yeah, no. To do that, because even like, I'll say tomorrow, I have to see like 6 to 7 people tomorrow. I have 2 pre-plans, a plan, and a quarter. That is a lot of paperwork. Where, in an 8-hour day, where do I have to fit that in?
So,
I have a spectacular tracking system.
right. Can I give a couple? It's definitely a challenge when you're working with 40 people or more. I want to clarify a couple things. So that's a conversation to have with your management. You know, here's what the law says I'm required to do for person-centered planning. Here's the tracking system I use. You know, that question is really, I think, meant for them. How can I do the job you're asking me to do efficiently? Just to clarify, that 14 days that's after the pre-planning's already been done. This is after you've had the actual meeting. So again, it's not just that paper that's written up that says person-centered planning on it is not PCP. That's the form that comes out of it. But after all of that is already done, that's why it's important to really start early. So on every PCP that I'm doing, when I write up the plan, I talk about when we're going to begin next year's plan, which is 3 months prior to the time that it's due. I start talking and gathering pre-planning information. That 14 days is simply from the time that meeting happens where you've discussed and finalized all the goals with that individual, they have to have receipt of a written plan. So can't change that 14 days. That's not my thing. It's something I created. But they do have to have a written copy of it. Right.
With having to do all of these plans, and when you talk about somebody having to do 4 plans in a day, IPOS meetings, not the plan, the meeting, and then you have someone that has 5 goals, 6 goals, 8 goals.
Right.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is absolutely, I want the people that's making these magic numbers
Right.
for at least 6 months to see exactly how I burn my
Yeah.
car out or how I, no.
Right.
7 days no. They're making, I'm gonna say this, and I've told my administration, people higher up are making choices for the ones at the bottom. And I'm gonna speak for case management, and I say this in probably every other month. We in case management, we are the low man on the totem pole, and we get kicked. When you think about the totem pole,
Right.
we get kicked off the trash. Whatever somebody don't want to do, give it to the case manager. Whatever, and that just adds on more and more
Right.
paperwork for us, and that's not fair.
Yeah. I can see that you're a person that wants to do a really good job and you're just struggling with the idea of how do I do that with the tasks that I have. So what I would say is there's some tools that we can talk about to talk about your specific situation. I have one of my cards up here. I'd like to give you one of my cards because I'd like to talk about that more because I do serve on some of the committees that are starting to look at the person-centered planning process. And some of the information that I'm going to show you here shortly came out of that process. One of those things is how many people does each support coordinator need to provide supports for? And that's something that different CMHs are handling in different ways. Sometimes there's a support coordinator assistant kind of situation, maybe somebody who does just the write-up, or different parts of this to help in that situation. So we'll talk specifics. But I can't do that and finish all these slides at the same time. One more question and then we'll move on. Go ahead. Right. 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 And there's ways to kind of stagger services, so we'll talk too, because there are some cheats in the sense of altering when a service plan is due, and things you can do to extend the time frame by which it's due, so that you don't end up with 6 due on the same day, or more than that due on the same day. So I want to be able to talk specifically with you about your individual situation and how I can help you with that. So let's talk for a moment about the types of planning tools. Most of you, I think, have heard about these. If you want more information, here's links that you can go to. I'm not an expert in each of these. I'm just somebody that's used all of these over the last 40 years when I was working directly as a support coordinator. So MAPS, or Making Action Plans, that was created by McGill. It's also often called McGill's Action Planning System. There's a PDF there that's linked. And again, a lot of these are pictorial because we're working largely when we're talking about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, people with limited reading skills. And so you want to have a plan that they can understand and that they can follow. So that may involve pictures more so than words. And always thinking about accessible language and plain language and what we write up. There's PASS, which is Planning Alternatives Tomorrow with Hope. There's a PowerPoint presentation there about, I think that's University of Minnesota, put together specifically about PASS, so you can learn more about those. These are things that can help you be able to do kind of that pre-planning in a timely manner. And again, if you're using an independent facilitator, that's somebody that can help you get through that paperwork and that process in a timely way. There's essential lifestyle planning. There's a brochure that I've listed there that talks about those specific tools. There's personal futures planning. The ARC is really tied into personal futures planning and using those tools, so there's information on their website. And then there's Charting the Life course, which is newer. It's come out in the last, I guess, 5 years, I'd say. You can go to www.lifecoursetools.com. I have put a link there. So Life Course Nexus is out of the UCED of University of Missouri, Kansas City. And so we are one of the Life Course states. So there are people within the state of Michigan who have gotten additional training on how to use this tool and to be able to teach other people how to use this tool to do person-centered planning. So there's lots of options that you have for tools. It's not about the tool or the form, it's about being person-centered. So this is something that would be discussed with the individual in the pre-planning process. What form or what tool are you going to use? Because it needs to be based on what that individual wants. So when we talk about PCP domains, it starts with A, strengths-based, culturally informed, whole person focused. B, cultivating connections inside the system and outside the system. Sometimes we rely very heavily on the system, and Medicaid language says it should be the payer of last resort. So if there's a way to get that service or support that that individual needs in the community, the same place anybody else gets it, then why are we creating a Medicaid service to provide it? If somebody needs help with finances, why are we using Medicaid services when they can go to the bank that they have an account with and get financial services? We don't always think about those non-disability specific services that anybody in the community could partake in. So we talk about that. Rights, choice, and control. D is partnership, teamwork, communication, and facilitation. And then E is documentation, implementation, and the monitoring. So these are the 5 person-centered practices that we talk about. You really need to have competency in each of these domains to understand how to do the process according to best practices. Now, we've mentioned a few times independent facilitators, and again, they can be very helpful. They help you from the pre-planning process through the write-up of your PCP. So maybe if there's an independent facilitator, they're writing a draft of the goals and that person-centered plan and giving that to the support coordinator in a timely fashion so that it can be turned in. They can make sure that the individual's voice is heard because they're meeting with that individual, as part of the pre-planning process. They can help the individual and their team to reach the dreams. And your handouts give you some more information about independent facilitators. So I did like a 1-page write-up specifically about independent facilitation in Michigan. So that's one of the handouts that you can get at the conference website as well. So why would you want an independent facilitator? Many people, again, every person receiving behavioral supports in Michigan through the Department of Mental Health, through the CMH, through home and community-based services is entitled to a person-centered plan. And that talks about being offered an independent facilitator. Many people think, well, I wouldn't want an independent facilitator unless there's some conflict between me and my case manager or my support coordinator. It is helpful, even when you like what your support coordinator or your case manager is doing. An independent facilitation can help with some of those timeline things and the tasks to do. They can really make sure that the focus stays on the person. It's a fresh set of eyes. When I've worked with somebody for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 years, it's like you feel like you know everything about that person. Sometimes having a fresh set of eyes, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. So that can be really helpful to have an independent facilitator to come in and talk about that. It's another ally for the person. And the case manager or support coordinator is better able to participate in the meeting and get the information. So you have the opportunity as the support coordinator to be putting that into a formalized goal right there at the meeting. When it's discussed that we want a goal about this, it gives you the opportunity to do that in a more timely way. It's a creative way for all people you want in your life to participate and support you. So again, I will tell you, when my son turned 18, he's now 26, my brother called him at school, and he's like, hey, Uncle Kev, what's up? And he says, I need you to be my guardian. And so Ty had a conversation with him. I don't know what it was. He was away at school at Northern Michigan University. But I can tell you, as soon as he hung up the phone, he called me. He's like, Mom, what's going on? Kevin thinks he needs a guardian. And I was like, what? Like, we've never talked about him having a guardian because he can make his own choices and all of that. And so then I called Kev, hey, I hear you talk to Ty. And he says, yep, I need him to facilitate. And I was like, what? He goes, I want Ty to facilitate my meeting this year. And I was like, oh. I think what you said to him, though, is you want to have a guardian. No, don't want that. And I was like, okay, just want to be clear on what's going on here. So he asked my 18-year-old, okay, I've been in the field for, at that point, 30-some years. My sister also works in the field of rehabilitation. Do you think he would have asked us to facilitate his meeting? No, he didn't want the bratty little sister or the oldest in the family to take over. So I asked him at one time, so why did you pick Ty? And he goes, because you're getting old, and I need to be prepared with the next generation. And I was like, dang, he's smart. He's often the smartest one in the room when we're at family events. So he was already thinking, I'm approaching 60. We'd had this conversation the time just before that I was with him about, gosh, we're getting old, Kevin. And he does, but you're still younger than me. You're still the baby. He's got that down to the day, the month, and the hour of how much older than me he is. So you still have to listen to me. And from that conversation, he sat there thinking, I'm getting older. What do I need? Here's my supports. If I'm getting older, she's getting older too, and she's my primary supporter. I need to go to the next generation in the family and make sure they're prepared to take over. So he's 18 now, he's an adult, he needs to learn. And I was like, wow, dang, Kevin. I said, you're always the smartest person in the room, aren't you? And he's like, yeah. Did you just figure that out? I was like, yeah, I guess so. So think about that. It's a way for all people you want in your life to participate in the meeting. I've gone to meetings where somebody's little brother or little sister, like 12 or 13 years old, is like dragged to the meeting. They don't know what they're there for. They don't know why, what the meeting's about. If they're an artist, they can do the picture, And so I remember one rather, I'll call him a bratty little 13-year-old, which was the brother of the focus person. And he's like, everyone was introducing themselves, and he was like, my name is this. I don't know why I'm here. I don't want to be here. And I was like, wow, just put it right out there, And I said, hey, could you help me with the markers? And he's like, yeah, okay. Turns out this guy was a tagger, and he did some great graffiti-style art. He did the whole pictorial of, I used to have it in my office for like 6 years. Up in my office, it was wallpapered with the pictorial plan for this individual because his 13-year-old brother had created it. And he came to every meeting after that, and he never again said, I don't know why I'm here, or I don't want to be here. He looked forward to it. He bought special markers and special what do they call it? That's not chalk, pastels to use to put shading in. I mean, this was the coolest pictorial plan I'd ever seen. So there's a role for everyone at the meeting. It was important to that focus person to have his brother involved. It, at least initially, wasn't so important to the 13-year-old. So a trained person, an independent facilitator or facilitation is where a trained person who does not work for the CMH that provides services for the focus person. It's not a paid employee of the CMH, doesn't get money based on what your plan says or doesn't say. So it has to be independent. So where can you find such a person? I'm going to click through. That's Andre. He is a trained independent facilitator. He doesn't do much of it anymore because he also has full-time work in the insurance industry right now. But where you can find an independent facilitator, so somebody earlier asked the question, where do I find them in my area? You can go to https://ddi.wayne.edu, IFMap, and it will show you a map in Michigan of where there are independent facilitators and what locations they work at. If all goes well with tech, everybody look at the guy in the back. If all goes well with tech, I'll click on this, and it'll show you the site. Can we get to that website? Okay. So Andre is a person who served as a peer mentor at the CMH that he received services for a period of time. He used to present with me quite frequently, but now he has a full-time job in the insurance industry, and he didn't have time for me, so I've been kicked to the curb. Are you able to bring that up? Okay. I thought I had it linked, but it's not clicking for me. All right, we'll make it easy on you. We'll just move on. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so just scroll a little bit so they can see what the site looks like. You can get a map of Michigan, where all the regions are, and keep going. Does it say independent facilitation? Stop there. So you can click on your area and click, and it'll give you a list. And it gives a little bio and a picture of all the independent facilitators. I was on there, but now I work for behavioral health. So I'm not independent, but when I retire from the state of Michigan, then you'll see my picture up there too, because I'm going to go back to being an independent facilitator when I'm no longer providing supports through behavioral health in Michigan. Because I think this is an important task. I think it's helpful to sports coordinators and case managers, and I think it's a way to help really keep the person-centered process going in the way that it should. All right, we'll let you off the hook and go to the next slide. Okay, so people asked about goal writing. Before I move on to goal writing, is there any other questions about independent facilitation? Okay. So the next one of you at a pre-planning meeting says you don't want an independent facilitator, do you? Think of this face. Okay. Yeah, and you may have a really good, again, independent facilitators are not just there for when there's issues. A lot of times people think, well, I don't have any issue with you as my support coordinator, so why would I want an independent facilitator? Really, they need this kind of information. So if you're hearing that a lot and you need a training designed specifically for people supported by your agency about what independent facilitation is, we can come in and do that. And we'll do that free of charge. So the state of Michigan, employs us. Any of our work is owned by the citizens of Michigan. So we'll come out and provide that training. We'll have peer educators come out and provide that training. And some CMHs are hiring individuals who are peer mentors, and that's one of the jobs that they're doing is talking to people and preparing them for their person-centered plan. They are helping them to understand what an independent facilitator is. They might show them, surf that website with them and show them who are the independent facilitators that work in their county. Okay, so goals. Goals on the actual document. So we've done good pre-planning and we've met all those best practice guidelines and we've had the meeting. Maybe we had an independent facilitator, maybe we didn't. And now it's time to write up those goals. So the state spent a lot of money to bring in some consultants and lots of people from different organizations, and representing each of the PIHP regions got together for over the course of a year and came up with things that kind of brief information about how we can help people write goals that are person-centered. So again, this handout is available at the conference website. It's a two-sided, so I have two slides here. It's important that the goal is in the person's voice. It should not, dietitian, according to the dietitian's assessment, that's not how people talk. I want to lose weight so I can buy more clothes, clothes on more than one rack. That's my goal. If that's how they write the goal, then you might have to be more specific when you write the objective. So I appreciated who was asking me whether something was a goal or objective. That's going to be more specific, but it should be written in their voice. Positive and empowering terms. I should talk about quality of life. The phrasing, again, needs to be theirs, not service-based. Here's what we have available. It's not the menu, the CMH menu. You can choose this or this. That's it. every person that gets behavioral health services in Michigan gets the a la carte menu. Well, I want my salad, but without walnuts, and I'd like my dressing on the side. It's the same kind of thing. They get to choose the services that make sense to them, not from a limited list of what you're going to offer. It's our role, if we don't have the service available, to think about where could they get the service outside our agency, and oftentimes natural supports can be part of that. So these two cheat sheets, this and the next page, talk about specific goal writing. So we actually gave some examples in this handout. So you want to go to the conference website and get that, okay? Where we give examples of goals and objectives. So we broke that down. So who asked that question before? You definitely want to kind of look through this because it talks about how a goal and an objective should be written. Got a couple more slides here. And I'm going to skip the last section because you all know what happens if person-centered planning doesn't happen. But I use these slides when I'm talking to individuals who are supported by CMHs. So what can you do if you have a concern about your PCP? You can share the handouts from this presentation that, with your support coordinator or with the agency that's supporting you. You can ask an ally to help you talk with your CMH. You can talk to your case manager, and if you're a case manager or support coordinator and you need some support, you can call in an ally, somebody from one of the advocacy organizations to help you have that conversation with your administration. Talk to your case manager supervisor or speak to a recipient rights officer. Those are all things that you can do. I'm going to skip right ahead to the question slide because we are right at 12 o'clock. I'm going to stick around a bit. This just goes through forms that you all know about. I'm going to put my contact information up there. So I have cards here. If you want to talk to me specifically about a situation that's occurring with your PCP or like, I don't know how to write this goal up or whatever, you can contact me. But right now I'll stick around for a little bit. We're at 12. And so that's the end of my presentation, but I will hang out if people have specific questions. Thank you for coming. Can we have a hand for our tech person? Because I threw him a curve. Thank you. The out code is 98.